City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded September 3, 2024.
All right, I have 6 o'clock. I will call the City Plan Commission meeting to order. Director, could I get a roll call, please?
Weeza.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Arnson.
Here.
Beacom.
Here.
Muskoviak. Here. Rice. Here. Schuler.
Here.
Everyone is here. We will continue. Item number 2 is the report of the August 5th meeting of the Plan Commission. Those minutes were included in your packet.
Move to approve minutes as presented.
Motion by Rice, second by Arnson. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Just a little housekeeping, because I think we've got quite a few new faces here. We have several public hearings tonight. Public hearings are a legal requirement. When a public hearing is called, if you have something to testify on, step to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, and go ahead and give that testimony. That is not an opportunity to ask questions or interact. Although you can ask questions, they just won't be answered until after the public hearing is concluded. So if you do have questions, you can certainly ask them during the public hearing, but know that you won't get an answer until after that legal portion is concluded. After the legal portion is concluded, some of the items we have action on, some of them we don't. If there is action, of course, we'll allow that question and answer back and forth type discussion. I do want to point out that items number 6 and number 7 will have no action tonight. We will take action on those at a later date, but we will continue on with the public hearing. I think that's why most of you are here. So before we get started, any questions there? All right, then we'll move on to the first public hearing. Item number 3 is a, let me share this first. Ink Technology Grand. Other one. Sorry, yeah, other one. Thank you. There we go. All right, first item is a public hearing, and that is a request from Jason Davis, representing Blue Top Enterprises LLC, for a conditional use permit to operate a car wash on the property located at 3457 Church Street, with the parcels identified in your packet consistent with Chapter 23.02 Sub 2 Sub D Sub 3 Sub K. Adam, are you going to take this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as folks may recall, this property is home to an abandoned car wash. The purpose of this conditional use permit request is to restart that car wash use on the subject property, utilizing the existing manual car wash structure that's located on the site. So under the applicant's project proposal, there's no plans for any significant changes, i.e. additions, demolitions, etc. The proposal consists of some patching work within the parking lot, application of new paint onto the building, signage, and on the next slide we have an image of more so an existing look of the building along with the proposed vision for the building on the bottom. So this property is zoned B4 commercial, and within the B4 commercial district, car washes are a conditional use permit. I know some folks on the commission may be wondering what's the purpose for this request. Looking through some archival records, it does not indicate that a conditional use permit was granted at the time that the car wash use was occurring on the subject property. Therefore, it's subject to our non-conforming use section of our zoning ordinance, meaning that if a car wash use in this instance has been halted for a period of 12 consecutive months or more, it loses its legal non-conforming status, and under this situation, the applicant would need to obtain a conditional use permit to restart that use. Staff recommends approval of the conditions and would recommend approval subject to those conditions on the next slide. There we go.
Cool. Thank you. Before we open the public hearing, are there any clarifying questions from the commissioners? This one's pretty straightforward. I did see a bunch of people walk in. We do have an overflow room. The next door down the hall to your left has video and audio and chairs, most importantly. If you haven't signed in yet, please do so. After saying that, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, step to the lectern, name and address for the record.
Written testimony for this one.
Written testimony for this.
Okay, my name's Jason Davis, and my address is W4095 County Road A, Tomahawk, Wisconsin, and I'm the one requesting the conditional use. I own 2 other car washes, and this will be my 3rd one. I'm a Stevens Point native, and I actually worked at this car wash back in 1994 when it was Superwash. So there are other car washes in this town, but there's not much for self-serve, where people want to wash a motorcycle, their boat, want to wash their car themselves versus a automatic or a tunnel wash, and I feel that this would be well served to the community.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open. And for the 3rd and final time, the public hearing is open. I do want to submit that we had some written testimony. I will briefly summarize them. Mr. Sangani from the Blue Top Hotel Inn voices his consent with no objection to this business. There's one from Jason and Christy Davis. I think we have to worry about that one.
Yeah, that's just the only one.
That was it. Okay. And I'll give it one more time. Any additional testimony requested? Seeing and hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed and return it to the commissioners for action. Commissioners? Yes, sir.
I move to approve per staff recommendations.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, second by Ms. Koviak. Discussion? Any additional comments from the audience?
I guess I'd just like to make the one comment in that it makes all the sense in the world to reuse it as it was before. I'm a big fan of reusing and before repurposing and all those other R's that you do, so thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Okay, seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's approved. Item number 4 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Drew Bain, representing Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, for a conditional use permit to construct a utility structure on an unaddressed parcel bounded by Whiting Avenue, with the parcel identified in your packet. And put that one in. Consistent with Chapter 23.01, Sub 1, Sub A, Sub 3, Sub B. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the applicant, the Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, is requesting to construct a 864 square foot control building on the subject parcel. This would be an existing substation just southwest of Ben Franklin Junior High School. It's been a couple of times over the last few years where we had a similar request like this, but the nature of this request centers on that if there's any structure that's proposed to be installed by a public utility, that requires a conditional use permit within all of our zoning districts. So as the subject property is zoned M1 light industrial, even with its industrial designation, it would still require that conditional use permit. As you can see within the report, there's those standard 14 review standards for considering a conditional use permit. The one thing I'll note is that a number of those review standards are met solely from the standpoint that the structure is enclosed within chain link fencing, is only allowed for use by authorized personnel by WPS. So a lot of those concerns regarding noise, light, access, et cetera, would be mitigated by this request. So as such, staff would recommend approval, and I believe we have a representative from WPS here in person as well.
We do. Before we get started, any clarifying questions from the commission? All right, then I'll declare the public hearing open on this item. Anyone wishing to offer testimony, step to the lectern, name and address for the record, and provide that testimony.
Drew Bain, representing WPS. We'll go with 750 Baton Road, Green Bay, Wisconsin. We're here to answer any questions you guys might have. Like Adam said, it's a pretty straightforward request. We're doing equipment renewals, and we need a new building to support that. So any questions, let us know.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open.
My name is Dean Curtis. I reside at 613 Wallace Place in the Village of Whiting. I am also the president of the Village of Whiting. Looking at the map here, we did have some residents with some concerns that this would lead to potentially more runoff. We apparently have some flooding in that area of Sherman Avenue, but after talking to Drew Bain, we're much more comfortable with the project. There will not be a large increase in impermeable surface. So at this point in time, the Village of Whiting is not opposed to this project as the property owners to the south of that area. And we'd like to thank Drew Bain with WPS for walking us through it and helping us understand it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public hearing remains open. Okay.
Ron Peters, 2740 Sunset Boulevard. I have the property east of that heavy industrial. Are they going to be running any more transmission lines across it?
We'll get to the answer to that question after the public hearing.
Okay, sorry about
I
that.
knew you looked familiar, too. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing and hearing no one else wishing to testify, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Drew, do you want to come to the lectern and answer Mr. Peters' question?
Sorry about that.
No problem. We're good.
This project is all asked for renewal. There's no new transmission lines being built as part of it. There are some distribution lines that are being rebuilt, so taken down and put back together, but nothing new is being added as a result of this project.
100-foot transmission line.
Yeah, right-of-ways that ATC maintains. WPS doesn't actually own those lines, but I understand what you're asking.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll move approval of the conditional use with staff recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seconded by Beacom. Discussion. Final comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, we will call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 5 is a public hearing. That's a request from the City of Stevens Point to apply a permanent zoning classification of R3 single and 2-family residential to an unaddressed parcel bounded by Burlesky Road and Old Highway 18 with the parcel identified in your packet, and an unaddressed parcel also bounded by Old Highway 18 with the parcel identified in your packet. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So as folks may recall, for these two parcels were annexed from the Town Hall into the City of Stevens Point back in June of this year. Consistent with what's outlined within the city zoning ordinance, any properties that are annexed into city limits are automatically zoned low-density residential, and that really starts the clock of a 90-day window for this commission and the council ultimately to designate a permanent zoning classification for the annexed parcels. So we're nearing that 90-day threshold. So as such, the request before you folks tonight is to apply a permanent zoning classification of R3 single and 2-family residential for these two parcels. As you folks see within the agenda packet, the two main items for consideration of any rezoning request is, one, is it consistent with the performance standards as outlined within the city zoning code. Given the size of these parcels and given that they're both undeveloped, they meet those minimum performance standards, lot size, lot width, setbacks obviously doesn't apply here, et cetera. And then the last one is consistency with the city's comprehensive plan. First and foremost, that it's consistent with the future land use designation for those properties. These two properties are designated for residential, which implies both single and 2-family residential uses. So staff does believe that this permanent zoning request would meet the intent of the city's comprehensive plan. City staff would recommend approval and would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, before we open the public hearing, any questions from the commissioners? Okay. Commissioner Rice.
Maybe one quick question. Thinking long-term planning, is there any benefit to kind of upzoning preemptively? Is the path to zoning down to a lesser classification any easier than vice versa. Again, thinking about multifamily housing long-term or non-residential uses long-term. Obviously, there's processes in place that we can alter those things in the future. And just kind of thinking out loud here, is there any kind of ease of that transition, kind of up or down the zoning designations?
Sure.
So with the public hearing component, it was published as R3 single and 2 family. The rule of thumb that I've always operated under is if the commission would want to further down zone, so go to an R2 and R1 zoning, that would be appropriate. If you would want to go to a multifamily zoning, my recommendation would be to have another public hearing and republish the public hearing notice. When you publish one thing that says R3 single and 2 family residential, and all of a sudden you end up with a B1 commercial zoning classification, it doesn't sit too well with the residents. And so we just want to be cognizant of that. So if you want to upzone, I recommend postponing and asking staff to do a public hearing notice with a higher density zoning.
Is that something you were considering pursuing, Commissioner?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before I open the public hearing? All righty then. Then I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, step to the lectern. Name and address for the record, please. Just as a point of information, you don't need to raise your hand or anything. You can just come on up. I usually got a pretty good idea of whether you're coming to speak or going to the bathroom.
Which is it?
Right now?
Okay. Bill Bushman, I'm at 5516 Elmwood Avenue in Stevens Point. And first of all, I applaud the Planning Commission for at least addressing the issue of the rezoning to R3. As you say, if you want to change it to some other form of residential, I guess that's down the road. But my point of contention and confusion is, as I look further ahead to Thursday, with the TIF District 14, and if I look, I saw 2 different publications. I think they were both by Ehlers. One was 38 pages, one was 85, I believe. And there were 2 instances on your maps where you show the parcel on Burlesky and Old 18, part of that parcel to be institutional or government. So why are we going through this process of R3 zoning tonight and then establishing a TIF district on Thursday and changing the zoning? Not necessarily changing, but at least showing a different zoning. I don't understand that.
Okay.
And it doesn't make sense, as Ryan might have said. You can bring this back to the table, but I'd rather see it nipped now than go down the road 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. I don't know when that'll come. And then have to deal with this again. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Here's
Thank
my
you.
comment.
Public hearing remains open. Public hearing, there we go.
I'm probably a little behind on this, but I have just a question. What kind of environmental impact is this going to have on all of us when all these houses and stuff get in here?
Okay. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing and hearing no one wishing to offer any further testimony, we'll declare the public hearing closed and move it back to the commission. Ma'am, your first question, rezoning it has 0 environmental impact. If something is built on there, there may be an impact, but the rezoning classification in and of itself has no impact. We were talking about Mr. Bushman's question on the Thursday. Thursday having that meeting. The short answer is we had one opportunity to draw the boundary for the TID. We chose that. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but you are absolutely correct. This is part of the comprehensive plan, and I'll let the director speak to that a little bit, but we just wanted to maintain as much flexibility as we could within the TID boundary, because that's when you create the TID, that's when you set the boundary. So because this was a non-residential TID, residential wouldn't be allowed within there. So, again, just to offer as much flexibility as we can. Director, do you want to add anything?
Sure. So the comprehensive plan is the overarching master plan for the city of Stevens Point. The current one that we operate under is from 2005 and identifies this area as residential. The city did acquire those parcels with the intention, I think, long-term looking at a potential institutional use like a public works facility and a fire station serving the east side of the city of Stevens Point. It is not in the short-term plan for the city to construct those facilities. It's a very expensive endeavor, and there's councils and mayors that will have to make those decisions down the road. But if that were to occur, there would be a request for changing the comprehensive land use plan that requires a public hearing, conditional use permit, rezoning requests that would come along with it. So you've got really the comp plan, which is, again, the overarching plan. The TIF plan, when staff puts those maps together, it's what is likely or our intended future use for those lots. Knowing that the city acquired those parcels for that specific purpose, it was identified as institutional government. So again, doesn't necessarily mean that things are set in stone. The TIF plan is an independent plan in and of itself, but the comprehensive plan is the one that we operate in within Chapter 62. Of the statutes that requires that anytime we change the use of those specific parcels or there's a request to do so, that comes before this body. There's a plan commission meeting, there's public hearings, there's a lot more involved in it. So you have this bizarre situation where you've got kind of two tracks that were going on concurrently, and they're not at all necessarily equal.
Does that answer your question? If not, I see you got your hand up. You got to come back to the microphone. Otherwise, nobody at home can hear you.
So my question then, again, to Ryan or to whomever is, why is it necessary to put those two parcels in the TIF to begin with? Why don't you just cut that out and go to the properties south of the tracks?
The simple answer is it's not necessary to put them into the TID,
Then why are we doing
to allow the most flexibility for the future use of that area.
That sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty about residential usage.
There's a lot of uncertainty about that entire TID.
And I would, really, we should be talking about the rezoning specifically.
Yeah.
There is a public hearing on Thursday relating to the TID, and I would recommend, Mr. Bushman, that you attend that to ask why we're not including or excluding specific areas within the TIF district.
I know this is jumping ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, it is, and I'm allowing it only because it's
somewhat related.
Somewhat related, right? It appears to be contradictory at first, but the zoning reclassification here is to zone it residential. The TID, which is completely separate.
I understand.
When we put that boundary in with the creation of that TID, we want to maintain as much flexibility for the uses as we can.
And my understanding, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but if you want to bring this to public hearing on the TIF district establishment, then the onus is put on the residents or the taxpayers to petition any change that the commission might have or going to a TIF. Is that correct? In other words, if you decide to do this and you want to change that east end of or the west end of that parcel to institutional down the road, then we as residents, what do we do to override that decision? Do we have to go out and petition it?
And again, Mr. Bushman, it's
different.
It's irrelevant to this issue, but I'm going to answer it only out of courtesy because, again, it gets confusing, but I want to explain it as best we can. So if the life of the TID is 20-some years, whatever it happens to be, let's say 10 years from now, someone decides that they want to put a fire station on one of these two parcels. It would have to come back to this body.
Correct.
To amend the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
And then to change the zoning. All of which are going to be just like this, public hearings, public input, and then a vote by this commission, and then ultimately common council.
Okay, so there's no petition that we as residents would have to go out and establish to counter?
No.
Anything?
No.
That you're aware of? Okay. All right. That's fine.
Okay?
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. I forgot where I left off. We're done with the public hearing. It worked. Commissioners, any thoughts, comments, or motion?
Did
Yes, sir.
you say that residential isn't allowed in the TID district?
So for institutional, I'm sorry, let me back up. For industrial TIF districts, there has to be a certain percentage of the TIF that is allowed to be residential. In this case, we're under the total percentage, even if this were to be zoned residential. It ends up being, when you establish a TIF, okay, you've got this idea that there will be development that occurs within the TIF district. You cannot incentivize single-family zoning within the industrial TIF classification. The state is very strict on that. You can only incentivize job creation, infrastructure improvement via the industrial TIF. Now, if it was a mixed-use development TIF, remember there's different types of TIF districts, like what we have in the downtown or rehabilitation district, you can incentivize residential uses. So we are under the threshold that the state says you can have, residential use within that TIF district, but you can't incentivize it. Again, residential zoning is one of the most restrictive zonings that exist, right? It's very specific on what you can and can't have in this area. That is just the nature of residential zoning. And so when we take things out of like low-density residential and put them in R3, which is single and two-family, it's a little bit more flexible than if it was just strictly single-family residential. But again, if there's ever a need for changing that, there'd be a long process, including comprehensive plan amendments, public hearings, conditional use permits, that would be pretty heavily involved in any time that the city, if they were to pursue putting a fire station or a public works facility in this area, would have to go through. And that all involves this public process. So, again, the rezoning itself, staff recommends approval. The TIF conversation, I think, is better suited for Thursday at 5 o'clock, I think.
And you'll be there, right?
6 o'clock.
I plan on it.
right.
But just as a follow-up, so we approve the rezoning, and then the TID thing comes, and that gets approved. Somebody could, come in and develop this as residential, but it would not be incentivized
Correct.
through
Yep.
the TID. They just have to
Correct.
do it with normal, so that's the difference. with
I
the
should
TID.
also clarify, the state strictly prohibits using TIF dollars to build fire stations and public works facilities and village halls. It's called the Plover Rule, in case anyone's really curious. But so even if we include that within the TIF district, we couldn't leverage TIF funds to build those public facilities. The state's very specific on that. Again, as the mayor mentioned, this was only included as part of the TIF district because we have one shot to include property for the next several years. And we thought, okay, this is vacant land. It's already owned by the city. If there were to be any type of development other than residential, and we wanted to incentivize that, for job creation or whatever it might be, that gives us the flexibility and the opportunity to do so.
I think Mr. Bushman wanted to open up a UTV service center, right?
I was going to buy one, but I can't use it.
Good point. All right, so back to the rezoning request at hand. Mr. Schuler.
I will make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning of the property as described.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by
second.
Kneebone. Discussion. Yes, sir. We'll start with Schuler,
No,
then
go
go to
ahead.
Kneebone.
Well, just based on the fact that it was annexed based on a long-standing plan for annexations of that type in that area according to the comprehensive plan, and it's being brought in as a residential property. It will be rezoned as a residential property as had been anticipated by the comprehensive plan. That's why I'm supporting it. The rest of it, like you said, is a conversation like any other parcel that will take place at some point.
Maybe takes place at some point.
Right. So.
Thank you. Alder Kneebone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is pretty close to my neighborhood, and I think that at least most of it, I think the highest and best use would be residential. So I'm supportive of this zoning classification for these parcels. It makes sense with all the other houses around there that this is a likely place. So
Thank you.
would stay consistent with our comprehensive plan from, what, 20 years ago, too, as well?
Has it been that long already?
Still your
It's been near that.
Almost,
That's why
2005.
we're working the new one. Any other comments? Comments from the audience? The motion is to approve the rezoning classification of R3 single and two-family residential on these two parcels. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. As we mentioned, I know it gets a little complicated, but we're also having a plan commission, special plan commission, and joint review board for the tax incremental district on Thursday. If anybody wants to learn more about it than they need to know, you're welcome to attend. Thank you. Item number 6 is a public hearing, and I want to point out again that there will be no action. Thank you for coming, by the way. There will be no action on this request tonight, and that request from the City of Stevens Point to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the purposes of adding a chapter outlining a neighborhood comprehensive plan for the East Side neighborhood. Said neighborhood is roughly bounded by the town of Holland to the north, town of Stockton to the east, County Road Double H to the south, and I-39 to the west. We've got another presentation here, don't we? This one?
To the left, to the left.
That one. All right, now hang on, because I gotta, I don't know if that shares it or not. I think I gotta do a different share. Up to the top. I think you're lying. Share this one. All righty. Who wants to take this? Chris?
Taking this. Thank you, sir. As the mayor noted, that we won't be taking action on the two requests for you for items 6 and 7, but I will be presenting background information for both of these items together here. As many of you know, the comprehensive plan process or update process had begun in 2022, and we had transitioned to two planning areas, both the east side planning area and the southeast planning area, and that this body could review amendments to the comprehensive plan in whole or in part. And so staff had been given the direction to update the city's comprehensive plan, targeting specific regions of the city one at a time or two at a time. And before you tonight, we'll be discussing the east side planning area and the southeast planning area, both outlined on the maps that were included in this presentation and within the drafted plans in your packets. So some further background, we do follow a pretty strict input process and a very thorough input process. We do submit, we do send out informational mailers to all of the residents within the planning areas at the beginning of the input process, requesting or soliciting for information, and that way we gather contact information for folks, all the residents and property owners in the district. We host a kickoff workshop at the beginning of the process, host multiple walking tours in different areas of the planning areas, and then we begin drafting and revising. We held 5 different public input sessions with additional 6th conclusion meeting, and we prepared narrations of these meetings and delivered those narrations to all the valid email addresses that were submitted to us through the process, in an effort to make sure that all the input that we were gathering was applied. Input was gathered in person, vocally at the meetings, or in writing and via phone and email. So this process was very iterative, and we did go through a lot of amendments and changes throughout the entire process. When we go and update the city's comprehensive plan, we targeted a few key drivers for all of our plan amendments. We want to make sure that we are identifying where we are as a community. We want to maintain and enhance the community characteristics as much as we can, maximize the use of the existing assets and create new features for our community, and strive for that improved quality of life. And then throughout the process and when constructing an implementation plan for each of these amendments, prioritize financially and environmentally sustainable development in each of the planning areas or districts.
Just a real quick show of hands. How many people participated in one or more of the workshops or meetings that we had? So great. I'm curious to know, not right now, but I'm curious to know what you think of the process, because this is kind of a newer process for the comprehensive plan. But stop by or give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm really curious to see how you liked it.
So I won't dwell too much on all the details included in the plans. The plan drafts were included in your agenda packets, and we do thank you for all of the input that we had received from the commissioners and from the public. But I do want to just emphasize a few highlights from each of the planning areas. First and foremost, keeping those key drivers in mind, some of the highlights from the east side planning area included increasing the residential capacity drastically in the planning area and connecting those residents to our transportation networks in the city and ensuring that they can navigate the city, and evaluate the efficiency of the commercial and institutional land that is included in the east side planning area. The Highway 10 commercial corridor is by far the largest in acreage, and we have an opportunity to reevaluate how efficiently that land is being used to support our residents, as well as vacant acreage within the municipal airport. We also had been given direction from residents that if key features, parks, large-scale parks or infrastructure are not attainable or accessible from the east side planning area, that we continue to support a few additional key city features, such as an additional nature preserve or other public space on the east side of the city as it continues to expand or include those additional residential land. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. In the southeast planning area, so the area mostly surrounding McDill Pond, extending from Minnesota Avenue eastward towards the interstate. One of the major highlights or focal points for the planning area included how we as a city support additional activity on McDill Pond and the use of McDill Pond, and how that might be integrated to support the maintenance of the pond infrastructure. Support neighborhood development with safer transportation accommodations. There are several roads that need to be reviewed and improved to support the neighborhoods, and then the future land use classifications for remaining vacant parcels or those that are recently vacant were a major focal point of discussion. They are in sensitive areas between major traffic corridors and adjacent to predominantly single and two-family neighborhoods. So the future development of those sites is particularly important. We'll forego the last slide of the presentation because the last slide was an original recommendation to adopt the amendments for the comprehensive plan, but we'll be rescinding that recommendation given the comments and concerns received from commissioners, and we had received a significant amount of written testimony regarding some of the future land use classifications for some of the land within the southeast planning area as well, but wanted to open this up to discussion with the commissioners and with the public, specifically on these two planning area amendments.
So we will start with the first one, the east side neighborhood, and we will open the public hearing on that. If you have testimony on the east side neighborhood comprehensive plan amendment, step to the lectern, name and address for the record, please, and provide that testimony. Again, there will be no action on either of these amendments tonight. We will take up action at a later date, but we want to make sure we get the legal requirement of the public hearing out because we want that additional input before we have that final draft. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Jenny Burton, 5718 Sandpiper Drive. I'm a resident of District 7, and I attended almost all of the meetings. I love the political process. I was involved in politics in high school, so I'm also a dreamer. So these sessions that Chris facilitated are about dreaming. What do we dream? How do we envision our neighborhood? It was very exciting to be a part of that process. And early on, and once you're on the email list, he lets you know. And it's quite easy to get on. The first thing is to put your foot in the door to get information. And you can find out about any meeting in the city by going onto their website and click on Notify Me. Then you don't have to say, why didn't they contact me, even though they did send us letters. But sometimes it just helps to have an extra nudge to let you know what you want to find out. Trash stuff that happens, anyway, that's not pertinent. But it's quite easy to get that. I support the recommendations that were made. I think Chris and Adam worked really well to summarize the feedback that we gave. It was really cool. That first time they had these big sheets of paper that you tear off, and they put us into small groups, and they gave us specific tasks. And we really provided information that was taken down. It felt so exciting. That's it.
Thank you.
So thank you to Chris and Adam and to the commission for what you're doing to update the strategic plan. It's so exciting. For future neighborhoods that have this opportunity, please, for the good of your neighborhood and in the future, go to that first or second meeting just to get on the list. Be part of this process. It's fun.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open on the east side amendments or proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. East side. Public hearing is still open. For the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Okay, seeing and hearing none, as I said, we're not taking action on this. There will be some time, too, if something hits you on the way home or tomorrow morning, next week. By all means, provide that input to our Community Development Department, specifically Chris Claysmith, and we will get that incorporated to the best of our abilities. I want to note also that there were a bunch of written testimony. Those will all be available through the clerk's office if anybody wants to see those, but we're not going to go through and read those. Item number 7 is a public hearing with no action on the City of Stevens Point's request to amend the comprehensive plan for the purposes of adding the chapter outlining a neighborhood comprehensive plan for the southeast neighborhood. Said neighborhood is roughly bounded by CN Railway, Carroll's Lane on the north, the I-39 on the east, the village of Whiting to the south, and Minnesota Avenue to the west. Anything you want to add, Chris? I think you kind of covered that.
No, I think I covered it all in that short presentation.
Okay.
Many of the residents here I can see are some of the folks that submitted written testimony, and look forward to hearing their comments in person as well.
Okay, then I'll just go right into the public hearing and declare that open. If you have testimony, please step to the lectern. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Jocelyn Donahue Renford, and I live at 3349 Orchid Lane. I want to thank the Commission for delaying action on this item so that full consideration can be given to the issues that the residents have with it as it currently exists. A future land use map shows a community's preference for how land in the city will be used in the coming years, and generally the officials are bound to work towards the development that is supportive of the future land use map. The comprehensive plan update for the southeast planning area identifies the undeveloped parcels at the corner of HH and Hoover for future commercial use. The policies affecting this land are housing 113 and future land use 133. The testimony provided on this matter and the people who came to this meeting today shows that the community has a strong desire for that land to be used for residential housing in the future. I do encourage you to read that written testimony, as people have, said some really important things about why that land should remain for residential use. And in addition to supporting community interests as evidenced by that testimony and what we'll likely hear a little bit later here, revising the future land use map and related policies to mark that Hoover and HH area for future residential use is the best fit for the stated policies and objectives that are already in the plan. The subdivision that borders those parcels on Hoover and HH was built in the 70s for the most part, and it has been a quiet and exclusively single-family residential neighborhood for over 50 years, which is why residents want that to keep its residential status. The comprehensive plan policies at issue, they have been updated in the more recent draft to say that the development of those parcels should provide for a smooth transition between commercial land and the residential subdivision, and that residential housing should also be prioritized in the development of those parcels. While I appreciate the steps that have been taken to protect the existing neighborhood, the best way to protect the existing neighborhood is in fact to designate that land for residential use on the future land use map. If the land is marked for commercial development, the residents of the neighborhood really won't have much recourse for being protected from that commercial development. Additionally, designating the future use of this land as residential supports the addition of housing in a desirable area, which meets the growing need for housing in our community. It would alleviate traffic concerns, and it would prevent the creation of additional commercial space where there's no demand for it. So I urge the Commission to revise the future land use map and the associated policies, the Housing 1.13 and Land Use 133 before adopting the comprehensive plan update for the Southeast Planning Area.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Deanne Donahue. I reside at 3395 Howard Avenue. I have been a resident of Village Green Estates since 1994. I feel since we have moved there, many different municipalities have been trying to encroach into our subdivision. Not only the city with wanting to build a street for a second access in the industrial park, but the county and the state wanting to bring the Highway 10 interchange in. And now with this property at the corner of HH and Hoover, allowing that to become commercialized will just lead to a lot more chaos, not only with traffic, but noise pollution, light pollution. It will devalue our properties because who wants commercial property in their backyard? And just having a fence between residential and commercial, that is not enough. Commercial property is currently not needed in the city in that area. There already is a lot of commercial property available for sale and lease. I don't think the city needs to preemptively change the zoning of that property, which is currently single family, to commercial. It also, the traffic would become unbearable. It already has since the business park came into play, and we have Crossroads Common. That's all contributed already to light, noise, and traffic pollution for all of us. But our neighborhood, it's been there for approximately 55 years. It's a quaint neighborhood, and if I could see a show of hands of people from our neighborhood, because I know not everybody will speak, you can see we feel very strongly about this, and you've also received a lot of emails and correspondence, because thanks to my daughter who led tonight, we all feel very strongly on keeping that residential. The city needs more housing, and single-family duplexes would be wonderful there to help fill that need. So I really urge you, because I feel that the city has an obligation to preserve and protect the integrity of what already exists. So thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne Tilden, 3032 Channel Drive. Any study one looks at says single-family homes with families are a bedrock for stabilizing neighborhoods. When I read this comprehensive plan, all I see is small, durable, single-family housing or apartments being recommended. It's as if Stevens Point government is telling citizens that large single-family housing is off limits here. On page 14 of the draft, it's estimated that the city of Stevens Point, not the southeast area alone, will need 500 housing units by 2040. The old Shopko property estimates that they will have 150 to 200 residential units there. Now we're down to like 300, 350 residential units needed by 2040. There's a new multifamily complex on Patch in Minnesota across from the railroad tracks. Now we're down to like 300 needed by 2040 for all of Stevens Point. The population of Stevens Point, in the statistics that it showed, will grow by 1,000 people by 2040. In contrast, Plover, since 2020, its growth rate is 1.35%. Point is way under 1% growth rate. The number one reason people move to an area is for job opportunities. And that is, so if a Point wants to grow, there should be a main thrust of the focus for the comprehensive planning into future is that. Page 37 is a sole page summary, one page for the economic development. Page 41 says, several manufacturing operations exist in an old industrial park west of Southeast Planning Area. If these companies are encouraged to grow out of their existing footprint into a new location, blah, blah, blah. So basically, you can read it yourself. But why would you want to get rid of existing businesses? I don't get that at all. We ought to be focusing on keeping businesses here rather than getting rid of them. If jobs bring in people, then we need to have a good core group of manufacturing, a multi-group of businesses. I'll just say business. It can be anything. It's good for job growth and helps keep our residential tax base more affordable. So I'm not quite sure why that was such a low focus in the planning, but I totally disagree with that. Point took aim at small businesses owners about 2 years ago with keeping the 4 lanes open on Church or not keeping 4 lanes open on Church. So it feels like business is not wanted in Stevens Point. So. And then just go back to that multifamily housing unit on Patch and Minnesota, brand new. Why was it zoned across from a railroad track hub of 10 tracks? I would have no idea why that was done. I mean, really, would you want to live across from a hub of 10 railroad tracks, right directly across from them? So I don't know what happened with the zoning there, but it's not really very good. So I disagree with the main thrust of the Southeast Planning Comprehensive Plan being housing density. I just felt like there was a drumbeat that was over and over again that we have to have density. I don't know who's going to buy the land parcels, develop them, run the departments. That's not in the plan here. So I'm not sure if it's a city government. I'm not sure if it's real estate people. I'm not sure what the plan is there. That was totally absent from that. But I just think if you're going to have real density, you're going to have a real big issue. Because, I mean, I lived in Milwaukee across from the housing projects for years. It is a disastrous plan to have city government run apartments, projects, whatever you want to call them. You end up being victims, basically. So it's a bad plan. I don't know if we are modeling San Francisco. I don't know if we're modeling Milwaukee. I'm not sure. There was no mention of that to my knowledge of if there's a model out there that we're using. That would be nice to know. I have no idea.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open.
My name is Nancy Banks Willoughby. I live at 3338 Phelps Avenue in Stevens Point. In 1964, when I moved into that house, it was Plover. It wasn't even Stevens Point. And it was out in the Tules, and nobody even wanted to live there. And there was 5 houses on Phelps Avenue, and it was a dead end. Now it's a mess. And unfortunately, I did not start with this process. I've had a lot of health issues, was not able to attend some of these meetings, but I don't think dense housing out in here is the answer either. There's enough people in that area, and yeah, there needs to be something to bring jobs to Stevens Point, and something besides restaurants, because downtown used to have stores and all kinds of stuff, and now it just has a lot of places to eat, and I don't know.
Public hearing remains open.
My name's Joe Donahue, and I reside at 3395 Howard Avenue, Stevens Point. The whole purpose of planning and zoning is to allow the current residents to peacefully coexist with commerce and industry. Approximately 15 years ago, the county completed a traffic study along the Highway H corridor. At that time, the acceptable levels of decibels along that corridor, right where my house exists, exceeded on multiple occasions what would be acceptable levels of noise for current residents to exist. No action was taken as a result of funding. 15 years has transpired. The level of noise and the level of traffic has increased immensely. If the Evergreen subdivision, which has been pristine for years, right now I'm the existing buffer for it, right? If that traffic count is increased, if cement trucks and things of that nature are required to start and stop substantially more as a result of a commercial development on that corner there of Hoover and HH, the burden on the residents would be just unimaginable to me, and it would definitely violate the whole purpose of planning and zoning as a whole. Overall, I think Stevens Point has done a great job. I've enjoyed living here. I'm proud to be considered a member of that community. Our friends and neighbors, many of them have lived there for 40 years. They've been paying taxes and doing the right thing. And now an outside interest has commercial designs on our neighborhood. And quite frankly, I'm offended by it. Stevens Point can do better. Stevens Point has all kinds of commercial property available. The east of town is a proper corridor for commercial business. I'm a big fan of the increased level of traffic paths that don't require a car. That's very important to our community. Nothing's been done to allow people to safely go across HH. That would make a whole lot more sense instead of trying to throw another Buc-ee's in or some sort of chaotic situation that exists on that 18 acres where we desperately need R1 residential, R2, R3, far better use for our community. Currently, I was made aware at the last meeting, I've been there, I've got stuck in the industrial subdivision just north of us. I was told it takes up to 30 minutes to get out of there at any given time. If you allow that 18-acre site corner to become a choke point, you're going to be punishing all the residents that have existed and been contributors to this neighborhood for decades, and that would just be a damn shame. So thanks for hearing me out, and I hope you folks will reconsider on your, I think, current planning and zoning path. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't get Buc-ee's this far north. Not yet. Waffle House either. Public hearing is still open.
It's coming.
DeForest has one?
To DeForest.
Is there?
Buc-ee's is coming to DeForest.
I don't see what the attraction
Hi, my name is Susan Schlicht. I live at 3373 Howard Avenue, actually just a couple houses down from Joe and Deanne, and he really made a good point about the noise. We've tried to do everything we can to even live there. When we built there, it was potato fields across the way. Actually, this evening, I was telling my daughter, counting how many engine braking there was, how many guys burned out at the light to take off to go down, and we're just sitting there trying to have dinner. We cannot enjoy our backyard because of all the noise that has, progressed from Crossroads Commons coming in. And now the fact that there's a possibility of businesses being put in just down the street, we'll never be able to get out of our neighborhood. We'll have to drive all the way around just to get out. And I just wanted to, reiterate, the position of my house is one of the few 5 that suffer the most from the noise and have had to put up with the noise. But we like our neighborhood. We like our neighbors. It's a very nice place to live. Everybody helps everybody out, and we really would like it to stay that way and not increase that traffic pattern that's going to be going down that road. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open.
Hi, I'm Danny Wana, 5271 Forest Circle South. My husband and I, we just moved into this neighborhood earlier this year, and we worked very hard for this home and to be greeted by our neighbors within. Ginger, wave your hand. She greeted us right away, and it was something that we haven't experienced before. So all I ask is to keep it residential, because I would like my neighbor in the backyard to get the same kind of courtesy I got from Ginger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll get that a lot in Point, by the way.
Say again?
You'll get that a lot in Point.
Yeah.
People just being nice and greeting you. And Jeff?
Hi there, Jeff Radio, 3352 Howard Avenue. My wife Karen and I have lived there since '91. The noise level has increased quite a bit since then. Very nice neighborhood, very nice neighbors. Everyone walks their dogs along the intermingled roads in there. Very friendly. I would recommend leaving the recommendation is as far as R1 or R2, certainly condone any commercial use for that property. I think it would devalue the property and keep people from wanting to move into that neighborhood and keep it the way it is. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open.
Michael Corrigan, 3271 Tulip Lane. I've lived in this neighborhood for 35 years. Hoover Road was 2-lane road when we moved there. We were in the township of Plover when we moved there. So we got annexed. Sewer and water came in. We paid our fees to do that. And now it seems like our little neighborhood, because it's an island, okay? It's an island all by itself. It was an island when the city of Stevens Point annexed us, and they knew that. So when everything started taking across the street over, let's say, Nicolay, Olympia, Glacier, all those, the new subdivision across the street from Hoover, north of Double H and west of Hoover, that neighborhood was taken care of. There was trees planted. We've never seen any trees planted in our neighborhood. Ask the neighbors. Not all the neighborhood is here. I believe there's like 180 houses in that subdivision. Not all the neighborhood is here. And what I think is going on is the city is we're already zoned R1, R2, whatever it is. We're zoned commercial, or zoned residential. And knowing full well that the 18 acres is zoned residential also. Now this happened, 20-some years ago when we got annexed. Now for the city to have any idea of coming in there and changing the zoning, knowing full well there's plenty of places that they can do commercial real estate other than that location. Now everything else is going on the other side of 39. That's where all the development's going. We don't need a strip to deter the neighborhood. Now, we talk about City of Stevens Point being a community that's a great place to live. Well, you got to take all the considerations of quality of life into the fact. Now, what Mr. Donahue said is true. The county has not done one thing with Double H to deter noise and air pollution. So we're sitting here on this split. You're coming into Stevens Point to Double H exercise interstate. Stevens Point's on the north, Plover's on the south. These trucks are coming in, there's no sign. They're using their compression brakes all the way down and around the corner. Those poor folks that live on that, Lily Court, they're getting hammered by compression brakes. I hear it in my street. It's terrible. And we're also hearing all the guys with the diesels and hammering on that as they leave the stop sign. But anyhow, you got to consider the quality of life and don't just shove it down and say, well, it's not my neighborhood. This is my neighborhood, okay? I've seen the development that's happened in the last 35 years. I've seen the light pollution. I used to be able to be out in my backyard and watch stars at nighttime. Now with all this stuff that's across 39, it takes away all the night vision. So you're decreasing the quality of life for Stevens Point for a small minority of Stevens Point. But don't take us and just say, too bad. We're looking for development and we're looking for a tax base. You can find a tax base in residential. There's plenty of spaces for retail and commercial other than that location. I know we're not going to do anything about it today, but you need to hear the ear of citizens who want quality of life. Don't shove it down our throat and saying, we need multifamily housing in this place. No, you don't. No, you don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open. Alicia, I think you were online. You had something to say?
Yeah, I just didn't know if I could talk being
Name and address, please.
Video, whatever. I'm Alicia Screenis. I live at 5316 Forest Circle, and I'm also in this neighborhood everyone has been talking about. We've been living here for about 5 years now. I've actually lived quite different few areas in town over the last 15 years or so. And I just want to say that I am in agreement with everyone else who's been saying that they would like to keep that corner as residential. I really think, as they have said, it is a really nice neighborhood. And I think it's kind of interesting that you want to zone it commercial when literally 3 minutes away is all commercial. Why do we need to have that little tiny nook be commercial as well? So I'm just in agreement of single family residential zoning for those two parcels of land there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. For the third and final time, the public hearing remains open.
One last. Jeff Johnson, 5346 Clover Court. Now, if you guys did represent the city of Stevens Point and you lived in our neighborhood, you would be sitting with us over here. I've been there since '98. Love it there. Great neighborhood. I'm one of the dog walkers. I know virtually more than half the folks here just from living in there. I don't think commercial needs to be put there, so if we do the right thing. It's a nice, safe neighborhood, and I'm proud to live there, so thanks for listening.
Of course, now I got to go through the whole thing all over again. We'll have to talk about the dog walking. Maybe I'll swing by and we'll walk our dog there and you can show me the neighborhood. Public hearing is still open.
Michael Corrigan, 3271 Tulip. There's one thing I think that the city of Stevens Point needs to look out and consider. Plover's to the south of Double H, and we all know that all that property on that strip between the interstate and Hoover is for sale. We've seen the sign out there. So let's not be in competition with Plover to put up a bunch of commercial strips. We know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to put a strip just like they got over there at Mr. Brews and the Dennis Place and whatever. We don't need that on our corner. So let's not be in competition with Plover, okay? Especially in this area. Let them do what they want to do across Double H, okay? Let them do what they want to do there. But you keep this property the way it is.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Easy, Dean. All right, with that, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Thank you all very much. This is very valuable information. It sounds like most everybody else is okay with most of the plan, except for that Double H Hoover intersection. So I want to commend staff on getting all of the rest of it pretty good. There were a couple of things I wanted to address, and I apologize, I don't remember who was talking about it, but they were talking about the outside commercial interest coming to that corner. There is no outside commercial interest. There's no plan for it. We're formulating a plan right now. The other one was the city-run developments. If there was housing there, they were concerned whether the city was going to run them or not. We don't build those things. We work with developers, private industry builds those. We do have public housing, but that's run through the Housing Authority, and they are pretty much at capacity there. But if there's apartments or single-family homes or a subdivision, we don't run those. We maybe facilitate creating the lots or something like that, but that's up to the private sector to do. And the last one, and the most important one that I want to address is, I hope nobody has the impression that we're trying to lose businesses. That is absolutely not the case. What was referenced in the comprehensive plan is that sometimes, and we hope, businesses outgrow their locations. Skyward is a perfect example. It started out near your neighborhood, and that was their office building. Then they had a second location. Well, they outgrew that, and now they have a brand new world headquarters on the other side of the interstate. Steel King outgrew their location off of, by the Minnesota Avenue area, and they actually moved into the Skyward building to upgrade a little bit. We had Key Mobility that outgrew 2 different places, and then they expanded. I think they're on their 3rd expansion now. We want those businesses to grow and expand in the community. I think what the comprehensive plan was referencing is that some of those businesses will outgrow their location. That doesn't mean we get rid of them. That means we're going to find them another location, hopefully in Stevens Point, and then we'll find someone to take their old building. Another one was Maher Water. That one came to mind because they were right on the corner of Coy there, and they outgrew that, and they got a nice new facility out a little further east. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that we are looking to get rid of businesses. We want them to thrive here, we want them to grow here, we want them to stay here. And those businesses, of course, create jobs, which creates a housing demand. We are going to take this testimony, along with all of the written testimony that we've had, and take this plan back to the drawing board, make some changes, and at some point in the near future, we will have the final approvals pending for each of these 2 neighborhoods. Director, do you have anything you wanted to add before we move on?
I've got a few things to add. As always, thank you to the residents. I can assure you that when I've met with developers who've been interested in that corner, we have really worked in ensuring that there is some type of natural buffer between the residential uses and whatever would occur on that parcel to the south. We've seen developers come and go on that parcel. It just totally depends on the mood and the economy and whatever specific developer wants to do with that parcel. The 2005 comprehensive plan, which currently is what this neighborhood falls under, already has that 18 acres identified as commercial. And so when we were writing the comprehensive plan, we took that into consideration when putting together the new future land use map. The current zoning, and I think what's really can get confusing here is the current zoning is single family, R1 single family, which is one of our most restrictive zoning districts that exists. And so in order for any commercial activity to happen there has to be the rezoning, and you folks would all get notified via the appropriate channels, typically a letter from my office. But I really, there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of concern, and I totally understand that. But I mean, the city staff has been really cognizant of this neighborhood's concerns with potential commercial development on that corner, because it is, from just a pure outsider's perspective, a very good corner for some type of commercial development. So it's how do you make it work that the neighborhood to the north works. The neighborhood to the north, you folks, your concerns can be addressed through some creative site planning and enforcement of those site planning requirements. So as the mayor mentioned, we're not taking any action tonight, but I do appreciate everyone coming out and expressing your concerns. I received your probably 50+ letters. So if I didn't respond, thank you for sending this. I'm verbally thanking you for sending it to my office and Chris as well. So we'll go back, we'll work on a few things, but I just want everybody to know that currently the current 2005 plan does call that for commercial, so, thank you.
Thank you. In 1 second. Commissioners, any comments before we go back to the audience?
Yeah, just a
I just
kind
saw you
of
writing, that's what I thought it was.
just a broad comment overall. I mean, these are really robust documents that obviously took a lot of effort to put together, both city staff, but effort from the neighborhoods as well. So I just commend the participation. It's great to see people are engaged. It's too bad this one thing seems to be kind of drawing the most attention, because I think there's a lot of other positive things in all the work that's been done. And to Mayor's point, hopefully that means that by and large there's at least some level of agreement over a lot of the plan, and I hope that's true. So I just wanted to, commend staff for their efforts, and certainly commend the residents of the neighborhoods who've participated in this. This is like a level of engagement and transparency that I bet you don't get out of lots of local governments. So I'm glad that people are taking the opportunity. It's kind of a new effort for the city over the last couple years. So it seems to be bearing fruit, even though we, sometimes there's conflict, or there's things that need to get discussed and hashed out. I think that's all good kind of part of the process. So thanks to everyone involved.
We'll go to Kneebone, then Beacom, then Schuler.
Generally speaking, when plans like this were done in the past, it was all the planners in their offices with maps. We're doing it differently this time. We're going out into the neighborhoods. This is the kind of work I did when I worked for the city of Dallas. In the 3 neighborhoods I worked with, each group, now they had money. We don't have any money associated with the plan, but we had about $20 million to go into these neighborhoods. And the neighborhood people came together and met every month for 3 or 4 years and decided how they wanted to spend the money. And one neighborhood did a lot with business facade improvement. Another one focused on housing repairs. One of my neighborhoods wanted infrastructure repairs, sidewalks and things for their recreation center. So doing it like this allows all of you guys to be involved. And as the other person said, dream about how you want your neighborhoods to look in the future. So I commend city staff and the city for doing it this way, instead of just kind of deciding how, this looks good over here, like a Monopoly game. We'll put some hotels over there, some houses over here. This really allows the people who are most affected to have a say in how things develop. So kudos to all of you for being involved, as other commissioners said. And I grew up in the east side of Madison in Monona, and I can remember when the Beltline was a 2-lane road. So I know how that stuff goes. It doesn't always. It's not always attractive.
What time did the horse deliver your milk?
Indeed. It's a long time ago. Yeah, even into high school, it was only 4 lanes.
Yeah.
But,
You didn't hear him at all, did you? He asked if the horse-drawn cart delivered your milk.
Well, we did have a 1-lane trestle bridge to get from the Beltline into Monona. So, yeah, we were kind of in that era until about the mid-'60s.
Commissioner Beacom.
I would just say, to your point, I never sit up here and say it's not my neighborhood. I always put myself into the place of the people speaking. You're right, if I wasn't up here and I was in your neighborhood, I might be sitting out there. So, I read the letters when they come to us, and staff shares letters with us. I always take on that mindset, because it could be my neighborhood coming up here. So I hope you appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate all the comments tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Schuler.
I want to echo that. I think it's really important that people participate. I loved hearing the first comment about the dreaming and the enjoying it, because as a planner with the county for many, many years, we had a lot of open houses and a lot of hearings, and no one ever showed up. So I'm really, really happy. Even, like you said, to bring a point that you want to improve, that's just as important as coming and supporting the work that you really enjoyed. So thank you very much. And I just wanted to clarify something that Commissioner Rice said. I'm pretty sure that the city hasn't tried transparency for the last 2 years. I think it's the way we've done the planning process the last 2 years that we tried something different. I think we were doing transparency before that. That was a joke, and it went absolutely nowhere.
I got it.
Okay.
But like my wife says to me,
That's a nice try.
I got your joke, I just didn't think it was funny.
Yeah, there you go. I thought it needed clarifying. Though.
Thank you very much. Sir, you had a question? I need you to come up to the lectern, please. That's just so the people at home or watching later can hear.
Joel Schultz, 3301 Howard Avenue, Stevens Point. My question is, if nothing's been decided, why is a commercial developer offering that property for people to come in and set up their business there?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, it is currently owned by a developer who I think is out of the Madison area, and they own the property. They have every right to market the property how they see fit. They know that they would have to go through the rezoning process if they would want to develop it for commercial use,
Oh, okay. So it's us against them.
if that's how you want to look at it.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
I wouldn't look at it like that. I mean, that's private property. They obviously have the right to do what they feel they want to do, just like you or I do. So I wouldn't say it's a battle. At least I hope it's not going to be a battle. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Weiser, for allowing me to speak. It's not a war, but I think that corporation would probably qualify as an outside interest. These people are my neighbors, right? You guys are my neighbors. I like to think of the world as my home. That's an outside interest that hasn't paid taxes and contributed. Everybody in my neighborhood, when I met with them and I chatted with them, I had a sense of pride. I've been engaged in business for 34 years, and there's a difference between being a member of a community and trying to make boatloads of money, right? This is a neighborhood. That's why it's so important. That's why I'm so passionate about trying to preserve it. And I'm sure all of you guys have just stated that you feel the same way. So, in my opinion, it makes this decision a whole lot easier. And thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Again, Deanne Donahue, 3395 Howard. When you go to adopt this plan after revisions, will we be notified, or do we just need to look on the website for when that meeting will be coming up?
So the website will have it. The agendas are all posted. I don't know that they'll be the same type of letters that you got regarding the public hearing. I would say that probably not.
Okay.
But next month or the month after, I would expect. This seems like, again, one piece of the much larger comprehensive plan.
Correct.
So I think the modifications should be relatively simple. It sounds like everybody else agrees on everything but this one piece.
Correct. And I do know from the 2005 comprehensive plan, which I did fight on that one as well, that the future use could be commercial. That is what we want nixed off the plan. We don't want that to be something out there for future use. Future use, we strictly want it residential, the R1, R3, but we don't want that for a future plan, and we aren't happy about the outside developer coming in and advertising it as commercial, that those people that are looking at that want to turn it into commercial property. And I don't care how big a natural barrier is, as we walk through the 180 houses in our neighborhood, even on the far side, we could hear the traffic. So that noise is big. I'm toast already. I have HH as my side neighborhood, the other side of Plover, that is set to be commercial property if those residential things ever leave. We have I-39 right there. So I'm toast. But the other ones further in, we could still hear all the noise. And I will say we did hit 89% of our neighbors as we were telling them about what was coming up. So we did get a good turnout. We're really proud of that.
Great.
Thank you.
Sir, you had another comment? Okay.
Michael Corrigan, 3271. One of the things that kind of come up here was when that property was sold, the sign came up and the first thing everybody saw was for lease. Now that says to me there's a little bit of a presumption that the developer is going to come walking in there and he's going to develop commercial. And you, sir, Mr. Kanowski,
Good enough.
you've said that it's already in the works, that it's commercial, so to speak.
No.
The comprehensive plan.
So let me just clarify. The existing comprehensive plan identifies those 18 acres as commercial. The current zoning, which is the regulatory component that is R1 single-family zoning, there is a developer that owns the parcel. There has been a number of different iterations that at least he's brought to us conceptually, and we have reiterated to him every time we need to be cognizant of the neighborhood to the north, which is the Village Green area. And so, I mean, there's been nothing set in stone in terms of what use could be there, what the actual site plan will be, what it could look like. It's all just been purely conceptual at this point. The developer is also very aware and very cognizant that in order to build any commercial building on that parcel, a rezoning would have to occur and a comprehensive, I'm sorry, just a rezoning would have to occur, possibly conditional use permit and site plan. So there's, you know, a number of steps that still have to occur before anything could be developed on that corner.
I understand that, sir. But the presumption is, from residents, it's a done deal. Because when the developer puts a sign up for lease, it tells us that something's going on underhandedly. He's got a good deal going on already.
Yeah,
so that's what it looks like to
yeah,
us.
no, and I get it. And I think
And I understand that you're talking about he has to go through a process of rezoning and such. But what we, you know, when people see the sign for lease,
yeah.
if that's your neighborhood, you're getting a little nervous.
Yeah, no, I understand. I can tell you that, you know, we see a lot of conceptual plans come through the Community Development Office, and I would say maybe 5% of them actually come to fruition. There is no nefarious type thing that's going on. We are just working with the developer as we would with any instance, whether they're a single-family developer or commercial developer. We bring them in, we talk to them, we talk them through the process, what to expect if there is going to be some concern, and we try to be as transparent and open with the developer as we are with the public when it comes to these things.
I understand that, sir, but one thing that I think we've had to fight for everything we got in that subdivision. We had to put our own park in before the city annexed us. The city came by and did a repark. We had to fight to get a crosswalk lines painted across Hoover. It's still a death trap, but we get a designated crossing up by the old Delta Dental building. I mean, that crossing hardly ever gets used, but we got residents that risk life getting across Hoover from our subdivision to the Green Circle Trail. I mean, it looks like that, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but you got to consider these are human beings, okay? They don't want all this in their neighborhood. I mean, you're talking about bringing stuff into the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood.
Thank you. No, and that brings up some, I guess it's been a while since I've driven by there, but if there's a sign marketing as a commercial property,
There was initially, they took it down.
I was going to say, he's wrong. And again, I want to be clear on this. It's private property. I have no control if someone wants to put up if I want to put up a yard sign that says, you know, for sale or lease, I can put a Buc-ee's. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. But
They're working in there right now,
yeah, working in there for what?
moving stuff in there. There was a big flatbed in there with some timbers on it today.
And again, that's private property, but
Yeah, but
so
they're doing that
I get it.
because they know what's coming.
No, they think they know what's coming. They may think they know what's coming, but right now, as the director said, that's zoned residential. If there's a plan in there that this person is formulating, that's on them. Nothing has been presented to us, and it would have to go through this body and several others before any of those changes could be made.
How do we convince you not to rezone it?
You just come to the meetings.
Well, we're asking you, please don't rezone it.
Right. Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, and that's important to note. I'm still stuck on this whatever this person is doing with advertising, I don't know what that is, but I also don't have, I don't know where they got that impression from, because I certainly didn't give it to them. And like I said, it's private property. They can cut down trees, they can level the property. I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's still private property, and I can't control what he puts on a sign either, but that does alarm me a bit. Jeff?
Without rezoning it, they can cut all the trees down?
Yes. Yes.
I believe they're
property.
removing the garage that's on that property.
Correct.
I think they're removing that garage.
Okay.
That was their shed. So Jeff Radio, 3352 Howard Avenue. Again, I did bring up the dog walking and the neighbors that do a lot of exercise along that. Since we live there, it's a community of a lot of children too. I taught my kids when they started to drive, you watch that speed limit, and we're all protective of that. Howard Avenue. So now you're coming off Walmart or coming off the highway, and you come up over that hill and you see all that traffic down at the lights at that corner. What are you going to do? If you're in a hurry, you're going to come off Iris and go to Howard because you know it comes out to Hoover. So the increase in traffic in that neighborhood is important to us. We try to police it ourselves and tell people, hey, slow down. So we would hate to see any more traffic using that as a shortcut. So that hasn't really been mentioned. Thank you.
I never even considered that as a shortcut.
I didn't know it.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the tip.
I go to the light and turn right.
Susan Schlick, 3373 Howard Avenue. Just a quick question. Before the zoning or rezoning comes up, would we as a community have an opportunity to come to one of these meetings and face the developers face to face so we could tell them, you know, like WPS was here and answered questions and stuff. Could we have that same opportunity?
There is no obligation for any petitioner to appear in person.
Okay.
Out of courtesy, they should,
Yeah.
but I can't guarantee you that if a rezoning request ever came through, that the developer would be required to be here.
Okay, because I think we've all, expressed it to you, but I think what we need to do is get our feelings.
Apparently, there's a big sign with a phone number.
Tell them.
So, but, get it across to them, how we as a community feel and, tell them face to face, and they can tell,
I can't
to see
promise that would ever happen if a rezoning request ever came through.
Okay.
It seems logical that they would.
Yeah, I just
Or
thought
at
that
least a representative.
That might squash down some of all this, urgency of, what we're talking
Honestly,
about.
I'd suggest if there's a contact number on that sign, call it. Maybe ask for a neighborhood meeting.
We'll get our representative on it.
Yes, sir. And I don't want to get stuck on that sign too much. Again, that's private property. If I want to cut down my trees on my property, I can do it. If I want to tear down my garage, I need a permit, but I can do it.
Okay, I'm Greg Miller from 3317 Orchid Lane. My wife's lived there since 1973 or 76.
76. Yeah, that's what I got. Five fingers and 2 thumbs, or 4 fingers, 2 thumbs.
I want to know how many of you have seen a deer born in your backyard?
Oh, we're not born. They run. They eat.
Okay.
They have my bird feeder.
They're right over there. How many people have looked out your bedroom window in the morning and seen a buck laying underneath your window? How many of you have had put a new fireplace in and a bat came in your house?
Well, I've had bats in the house, but I don't have a fireplace.
But I got nervous, and my wife said, well, we got to get rid of those bats. So we called the guy that does the bat or pest removal. I said, well, what have you seen in this neighborhood anyhow?
Get the deer to chase them off.
Well, that's because if the deer didn't chase them off, then you have to watch out for the raccoons, possum, squirrels, fox, turkeys. How many of you have had that? I can say that each one of those animals have walked through your yard.
I can say that.
Okay.
A couple of them in my freezer.
Look, there's 3 people on your board up there. Folks, if we wanted to live in Milwaukee, we would. What do you have? What makes this city acceptable is those things I just talked about. What Mike talked about, Green Circle. How many people on here have ridden the Green Circle?
That was an easier question.
Okay. Folks, you have, I lived in South Texas for many years. And I'm telling you, you got something very special here. Don't mess it up. Don't mess up by everyone looking at me right now believes that if it goes commercial, there's going to be somebody said Buc-ee's may be the first one.
Or a petting zoo.
Don't say that.
They ain't no.
I've never been
that
to
would
a
be that would
Buc-ee's.
be nice. But if they cut off all those trees, somebody's going to come up with a snail that.
Sir, I got to be very clear. We have no control over how many trees they cut down, or you, for that matter.
Somebody's going to make a snail that's going to be extinct before too long, and I'll find that snail in that property, and it'll shut them down. Because just like they shut them down, planting things on everything from dams to super highways, people in there are passionate. And
Don't go on the property without permission.
Please, think it over and make sure that everyone here is concerned, everyone here wants to know if anything is going to be done, and we want to be here because if you think there's people here tonight, watch out, because it'll be twice as many.
Thank you.
We love this community. Leave it alone.
Anyone else? We wrap that up. All right. Again, no action is going to be taken tonight. This will be back at a later time next month, maybe the month after, for final approval on that. All right, number 8 is a request from Friends of Emerson Park to install a historic marker on a property located at 1401 East Avenue, parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.01, Sub 11, which is now Sarmer Park. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor mentioned, the Friends of Emerson Park is looking to install a 36-inch by 36-inch historical marker on the south, closer towards the southwest corner of Saremore Park. This historical marker will stand approximately 6 feet in height maximum and is intended to commemorate the former use of the site, being that of the former Emerson School. So we've had a couple of requests brought before this commission over the years, but essentially if an applicant is requesting to install a statue, in this case a historical marker, some sort of commemorative plaque, let's just say, on city property, consistent with city zoning ordinance along with state statutes, it would require this commission and ultimately Common Council's consent. Friends of Emerson Park has been working with Director Kramer along with myself and just making sure that this request meets, adheres to the city's park plan along with the city's historic preservation ordinance, both of them being met, and as such, staff would recommend approval.
Thank you. And I want to point out, too, we've got Alderperson Ginger Keemer here, who's also your president? Chair of the Friends of Emerson Park. They have done a tremendous job transforming that site into a former vacant lot owned by the school district into something quite spectacular. We've got a official grand opening coming up September 25th, I believe. It's almost $1 million you guys raised, right? 3/4? That's almost by lottery standards. And Mr. Schuler.
Will the pictures as displayed be a part of the sign? That is the actual version of the sign?
Correct. What's on the right half of the screen.
That's really awesome. I just think it's great, just the history on that site and to have it described like this. You know, I moved here in 98, And I was lucky enough to get to be in this building. I guess lucky that I survived because I got out without a brick in my head. But just before it came down, and just, wasn't aware of the transition over time of the different things that happened there. And I think this is just a really great way to make the public aware of that. So I guess with that, I'd move,
That Friends Group has done a tremendous job.
move to approve of it.
Thank you. Seconded by Beacom. Discussion.
I will just echo what Commissioner Schuler said. You guys have done a phenomenal job. It's a real gem.
Excellent. All right, comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh.
Michael Corrigan, 3271 Tulip. What's it going to cost?
Who cares? It's private funds.
No, I think we should care.
It's private funds, sir. It's not the city putting up the monument here.
Okay.
It's private donated funds.
Very good.
And
That's
we
all
are
I
not
need.
obligated to learn how much it costs.
That's all, if it's private funds, that's all. That's my answer.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's approved. Congratulations. Looking forward to it. Alderperson Kiemer, it is the 25th, right? September 25th? September 21st. September 21st is the grand open ribbon cutting for Saramer Park. So put it on your calendars now, September 21st. Thank you very much. Item number 9 is a request from Andy Whedon, representing North Wisconsin District of the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, for an exception to the city's driveway ordinance for property located at 1517 Maria Drive, with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.01, Sub 17, Sub I, Sub 3, Sub K. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So Peace Lutheran Campus Center, as the mayor mentioned, is requesting a variance from the city's driveway ordinance as it pertains to driveway separation from the intersection of two streets. So kind of to provide some background here, as folks know who have driven across this portion of Maria Drive along Vincent Street, it is currently undergoing reconstruction. And during that reconstruction project, the applicant reached out to the Public Works Department, describing their intent at some point in the short term to create a new parking lot on the north end of the building. As such, conversations have been had over the last few weeks between the applicant and the Public Works Department about better locating where that proposed driveway apron will be to help facilitate that future parking lot project down the road. So for this portion of Maria Drive, east of Union Street to Division Street, is considered an arterial street. Typically in our driveway ordinance, for any non-arterial street intersections, there's a minimum 50-foot driveway separation. Since Maria Drive is considered an arterial street, that separation requirement increases to 100 feet instead of the 50. So within the packet, I mentioned that the applicant is requesting to go the driveway variance route to reduce that separation requirement from the 100 feet that's required down to the 75 feet that's being asked. The reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. One is just the timing, since the reconstruction project is ongoing. The second reason, as you can see, probably not see well on the map on the screen, it's a better view in your packet. The contour lines I have visible on the map there. As folks know, if the contour lines are more closely compact, that means an increased slope upward or downward, depending on which line of path one's going. And so that's part of the reason why the applicant is requesting to push the driveway a little bit higher, a little bit farther north, to even out that slope a little bit to better address some future stormwater management considerations once the parking lot is constructed to the north of the church. Included in the packet, I have correspondence from Director Badoon. Him and the Public Works Department have reviewed this request and are comfortable with the requested 75 feet of separation. Staff would recommend approval, and I also have the applicant up here as well to answer any questions.
Questions from the commission or a motion? Commissioner Rice.
Just quick, is there currently existing parking on site? Not on site, no.
There's no parking to the south of the building there?
No. It's all green space.
It looks like parking.
There's a large patio.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it? All right. I was going to say, not much. I guess I had the question of, the point was made that part of this is being done for the handicap accessibility aspect of it, and that makes sense. You put the parking on that south side, and you got to deal with those slopes that you referenced, and that would have some issues. So, you know, that in and of itself may be justify the separation distance. I guess my question is, though, is that parking area going to be, it's probably not going to be limited to handicap parking, but could the area of that parking area somehow be reduced? Or
Commissioner, we're not looking at approving the parking lot right now, just the access, the apron.
That red map, those red lines that.
Sir, could I get you to the lectern just so the people watching at home can hear clearly as well?
Reverend Andy Whedon, representing the North Wisconsin District and Peace Lutheran Campus Center at 1517 Maria Drive. The lines on that rendering are a little exaggerated as far as the potential for a parking or paved service in the front yard to the north of the building. We're looking at only 2 to 6 parking stalls. We are a small ministry that's been on that site since 1970, serving the community, and we're looking at 1 maybe for a handicap, maybe 2, and the rest just for our small services on Sundays and Wednesday nights. Vincent Street was deemed overbuilt and was narrowed by over 6 feet on this road project. And we're envisioning that one side of that street will eventually become no parking. And so allowing us to have this approach during this project will further facilitate a future lot for those small number of vehicles.
Okay. Commissioner, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Commissioner Schuler.
I think based on the issues with the slope on the site, operations within the building now, and the nature of the traffic on Vincent Street, and the in-process downsizing of it, I would move to approve the request.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rice. Discussion. Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's approved. That will go to Common Council. Item number 10, but before we get there, I want to point out that Director Karnowski has taken a job with UWSP and will be leaving the city. This will be Director Karnowski's last director's report. Director.
Thank you. Shopco, the demolition is well underway. You can see straight through it, which is really exciting. So that'll be a really exceptional project that will transform the downtown area. And so thank you to this body and future plan commissions and councils that will really, for generations, make significant change in our downtown area. Please, we mentioned this a few times tonight, remind yourself that we do have a special meeting at 6 o'clock on Thursday for TIF number 14. And finally, thank you to the Plan Commission for the last 5 years and your trust in staff. We've had a lot of really robust conversations and public hearings and moving the community forward and community development and planning in and of itself is a controversial topic, but I think this body has taken it with exceptional grace over those last 5 years. So thank you for that, and thank you for always asking phenomenal questions of your staff, and I have faith that Adam and Chris will be able to at least carry the torch for the foreseeable future until my eventual replacement is named. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, for your 5+ years of service. With that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 7:48.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.